bought
our first house.
Yeah.
That's 25 years ago.
No,
It's a good time to be buying houses, wasn't it?
Right.
Huh?
Yeah. There's no way it's that long ago, but yeah.
You'd already signed the lease.
Signed the lease.
Signed the lease before we owned it.
Yeah, which is
Collected
probably
deposit.
not. I don't know if is that legal. I don't know if that's
Probably
legal.
not. Probably not.
Some of the early on rentals we bought were turnkey or almost turnkey. But later we started seeing the value of buying houses that needed more work.
People are obsessed with cash flow, and I'm sure you guys talk about on this podcast a lot. But it's like you will never get wealthy with cash flow on the single family game. You never will. But you can get wealthy if you buy enough single family homes. Absolutely.
What do you think the biggest misconception investors have about property managers?
Well, there's a lot.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor Podcast. I am your host, Spencer Sutton, and today I don't have Adam Hobson with me. This is an impromptu episode because I have got a couple of guests here in the office, and so we thought, hey, why not record an episode to talk about the Indy real estate market? So I've got Scott Hallberg and I've got Jeremy Tallman. They are Indy investors / they own a very large property management company. They manage around 1,200 doors. It's called T&H Realty Services. So Scott and Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Spencer.
We're buddies. We go back several years. Jeremy and I got to know each other at NARPM conferences, which is, for those of you who are listening, you don't know what NARPM is. It's the National Association of Residential Property Managers. So, gee whiz, is a mouthful.
It rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, right off the tongue. So gotten to know Jeremy over the course of several years, kind of catching up at conferences, and then Jeremy and Scott, who both own their company, came down and spend some time with us, and we're sharing best practices and learning from each other. So it's been a great couple of days, and we decided to hit record. So I'm excited to learn about the Indy. I don't know much about the Indy market, so why don't we start, because you guys are brother-in-laws. I think that's a pretty cool story.
That's right.
You married twins.
That's right.
And your brother-in-laws, but you're also business partners. Talk about like what's your origin story for like starting to invest in Indy? What were you doing before, and then what was why did you start buying? And tell us a little bit about that journey.
You want to take it?
Sure. We both were working as an accountant. I think you were a financial analyst.
That's right.
Manager.
Yeah.
And we had an investment, a stock investment company, club that we invested in. And as we kind of disbanded that, we had some extra capital. And after me remembering some conversations I had with my grandfather about investing and owning real estate, and when I was in college, I painted houses. I met some investors when I painted their apartments and different things. I had an interest in that, and I think you did as well. So in about, was it 2000?
2000. That's when we first bought
our first house.
Yeah.
That's 25 years ago.
No,
It's a good time to be buying houses, wasn't it?
Right.
Huh?
Yeah, there's no way it's that long ago, but yeah, 25 years. It's hard to believe. I think in November, we bought our first home.
So you kind of disbanded this like stock investing club. You had some capital, and you're like, hey, why don't we give investing a shot? You both are still in the like working your jobs, have your W-2 jobs or whatever. And then, so what was that like first investment like? Because you still own that house.
Yes, we still do. Our first house. It's right down the street from our office. So we could walk to it. But it's still occupied, and we've had several tenants in and out.
But how did you find it?
I think you found it.
Yeah, we hired a realtor, and he started sending us listings, and we saw that we kind of knew where we wanted to buy. There's an area in Indianapolis called South Broad Ripple, and that's where I lived and Scott lived. We were a block away from each other.
So when you think about like class of neighborhood, what class of neighborhood is that, would you say?
It would probably be like a C class, maybe now B plus, I would say.
Okay.
Because it's definitely trended up. Maybe not B plus, B minus, B area. This was on 52nd Street in Indianapolis, and it was an estate sale, and it wasn't in bad shape. It was dated, but we thought we can rent this. And we were lucky in that the seller said they knew we wanted to buy it as an investment. And they're like, yeah, you can go ahead and start showing it. This is before we owned it. So we started advertising it and showing it. And the funny story,
rent, like showing it for rent,
right,
like,
showing it for
We
rent.
haven't owned it yet.
yeah.
And I remember leaving closing on the north side of Indianapolis, driving to the property and meeting our new tenants at the property because we'd signed the lease, got the deposit, everything. We moved them in.
You'd already signed the lease.
Signed the lease.
Signed the lease before we owned it.
Yeah, which is
Collected
probably
deposit.
not. I don't know if is that legal. I don't know if that's
Probably
legal.
not. Probably not.
But
Well,
whatever.
it's statute of limitations.
Yeah.
It's over.
Right, that's
But
right.
we,
It's 20 years ago.
yeah, but we did it, and we thought this is so easy. And we were going to buy one a year was our goal, and then we started buying like one a month. And our goal, we were naive and didn't know as much as we do now, but we always thought if we bought enough rentals, we could just quit our jobs.
Sure. Yeah.
know,
Like
that
you're just gonna quit on
Yeah.
a couple $100 of cash flow a month.
And we actually modeled it out. We modeled it out and said, if we can get to this number, then we can quit our jobs. And imagine that. And obviously that didn't work. And it's a story we tell our investors today that if you're looking on cash flow to sustain you, unless you have a lot of properties, it just doesn't work. Cash flow is very hard. It was hard back then. It's much harder today. So, but
What were interest rates back then, do you think?
7-ish, probably.
probably paid between 7 and 8%
Yeah,
for that
okay,
property.
okay,
And I think
yeah.
a lot of our homes were in that range as we started scaling
Yep.
up our rental inventory. So honestly, the interest rates that we all experienced, several years ago or now a few years ago when it got into the 4s and even personal residence 3s and things, that just felt so weird to us, And
Sure. It's not normal.
It's not normal.
People began to think that it was going to be normal,
Yeah.
but it wasn't normal.
Yeah. So yeah, we scaled up to around 45 properties, doors that we owned, and
And we're still working your jobs.
Yes.
still
Right.
working our jobs. Yeah. And we wanted to make real estate our livelihood. And so 2 or 3 years into it, we started flipping homes. And we attended the sheriff's sale and did very well. It's the way that banks use to foreclose on their homes in Indianapolis or in Indiana. And they go through a sheriff's sale and public auction. And was very lucky in the fact that a bank took a big gamble on us and gave us a big line of credit that wasn't all secured, right? And
Those were the days.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a great relationship with them. They trusted us. And we got a large line of credit and started buying and selling a lot of properties. And then at that point, we said, now that we have actual cash flow coming in, like we're actually making money, we can do this full time.
And so but the cash flow you're talking about was cash flow from rentals?
No.
No,
No,
cash flow, proceeds. Probably didn't say that.
From what proceeds?
They were proceeds from the sales
Yeah.
of the homes that we
Yep.
flipped. And we're not the biggest. We never were the biggest, but we probably did 30, 35 in our biggest year
Okay.
of flips. But we bought homes. We felt like we bought them right. We made good money on most of them. And it allowed us to say, we're good. Like we can now. You went first.
Yes.
Yeah, he went about a year before me.
2003-ish.
Yeah. That
Okay,
sounds about right.
so about 3 years after you started
Yeah.
buying
Right.
properties.
Right.
Yeah.
You started amassing a rental portfolio, then you said, hey, we want to start flipping, and then you're going to take off, leave your
I
job.
left
and-
my job. My family situation allowed that. My wife had a stable job, and she gave me the blessing to step away from corporate America. And we got a small office, and I managed that office and kind of was the boots on the ground running the rehabs and help getting these flips ready to sell. And that was my main priority. And Jeremy, you still maintain running the rental business for the most part. And we work together on buying and selling, but the main part of my job was to get the houses rehabbed.
Yeah, to push them through where you
Right.
could actually make some money.
Right. So that was a daily activity, meeting with contractors, making sure they did the job right before we cut checks and that type of thing.
What was the learning curve there? Do you think in the prior 3 years of like managing rentals, because you obviously had some turns and some different rehab stuff that going on with rentals, that prepared you to do that full time?
It did, because I think some of the early on rentals we bought were turnkey or almost turnkey. But later we started seeing the value of buying houses that needed more work.
Yeah,
so then we started,
discounts.
right. And then so we started getting the vendor contacts and working with contractors, doing several make ready, from the purchase to get it actually turnkey for the us at that point.
And how were you finding houses at deep discount back in the day?
Well, I mean, honestly, it wasn't, we did have some relationships, as I think back, with some wholesalers, some turnkey providers that weren't necessarily turnkey, but they'd done some effort into putting them into rentable shape. So we did have a pipeline. I remember a couple agents would send us deals, and then there was one wholesaler that comes to mind. And then we bought traditionally off MLS. I mean, frankly, the idea of buying single-family investments at scale was not a big thing back in 2000 to 2005. That all changed after the housing crisis, but we didn't have a ton of competition for rental grade stuff, if that makes sense. So we were able to buy. I don't know that we ever felt like, we just can't buy anything. I don't ever really remember feeling that. I was wanting to buy more, just like, let's get more and more and more. And as long as you do it right, because we use leverage. I mean, we make no bones about it. I think that's the way to ultimately build up wealth in your portfolio.
So not the Dave Ramsey way.
No, I don't think that works for building up a rental fleet. That's my own opinion.
I agree.
But so that's how we did it. We just bought them one at a time, almost all of them. So
when did you quit your job?
So I quit in 2004, I believe, was when I went full time. The reality is I went down to 4 days a week. My company I worked with I was very transparent with them. It was on the south side of Indy, and I kind of called it jokingly T&H South in my office. So my boss knew exactly what my plans were and what my long-term goals were, and he said, well, just do this job, and as long as you do this job, then you can do whatever you want. So I went to sheriff sales during work. There were things I did. I'd go look at homes. I'd go to homes at lunch, whatever. I remember the one apartment building we own is an 8-unit apartment building. I went up at lunchtime and looked at it for the first time. So, but once I got into a full-time position where I could do, I think that helped us do more and more volume. So.
All right, so this is great. So you both left your job. It's a beautiful time in the real estate market because you don't have a lot of competition.
That's right.
Definitely no institutional competition at this point. Back in 2005 and 2006, no institutional competition. The only really competition were like local investors. They weren't super sophisticated. There wasn't a ton of marketing going on back then.
No.
I remember we first started doing some mailers in Birmingham probably in 2005, and just like jackpot. Like because people weren't getting tons of mailers.
Right.
We just started crushing it. And, but there just weren't a lot of people spending money on advertising and all that. So then the financial crisis hit, and you've got your 40 properties, you've got loans against them. What happened to how did you all survive 2008?
I think those were some of our best years.
They were our best years. From a flipping perspective, they were absolutely our best years.
Your best year. So how is that what you're saying is, hey, the demand for the houses was still there. You were just more selective about the properties.
So real estate became like a pariah. Like no one wanted to invest in real estate. So competition at sheriff sale went down. Liquidity went down. Like no one had money. Banks weren't lending money. Again, we had that really good relationship that still said, we trust you and we're going to let you do this. Inventory of foreclosed homes reached levels we'd never even thought were possible. Like there were sales in Marion County, which is where Indianapolis is, sheriff sales that had over 1,000 homes in a given month. That's a lot of work to like go through that list and find them. But you could imagine, let's say that 400 make the sale because a lot of them are going to be removed because of bankruptcies or they make good on their mortgage payments or whatever. And then you have a smaller amount of people buying. We bought really as much as we possibly could. I remember going to our bank one time and asking even for more money. It's like, we're in a unique situation where the inventory is very high, and they granted a temporary extension of our line of credit. But, and then at the same time, Spencer, I do think if you needed to buy a home back then to live in, we had the best product, right?
Yeah, we sort of had we were known to do really nice rehabs on these small-ish to mid-sized homes.
What was your price point for these homes?
Oh, goodness.
Gosh, I
would say 125 to 175.
That's probably
Okay,
exactly
okay.
right.
For the most part.
So
I mean,
so essentially C-class probably
Probably.
areas.
Yeah.
Good working class areas.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we tried to get in areas that were up and coming, had some mobility and regentrification. Later on, we started doing some higher end stuff. Those were really fun. Mm-hmm. But so yeah, we had a ton of inventory to pick from. We got the best deals at that point because no one else wanted them. And then, yeah, we didn't really have trouble selling them. I mean, we didn't take on so much that we couldn't turn them and actually sell them. So we just had a sweet spot where we were just busy but not overextended. And those were some of my favorite years.
Absolutely.
So what prompted you all to start T&H Realty Services, where I'm guessing you were starting to manage? You had your own rentals that you were managing, but you started to manage for third party.
Yeah, that was 2007 is when we made a decision to consider third party. It turned out to be
Okay, so right around the financial
Yeah.
crisis,
Yeah.
when
Right after.
probably investors couldn't sell houses anymore, so they were like, I need somebody to manage them.
Yeah, well, it was, I don't know what, like, I just felt like there was opportunity in our market because we tried to get people to manage our homes. Because when we were really busy flipping homes, it's like, hey, let's just, I don't want to do this showing. Like, you look at the value of your time and it's like, gosh, I need to go be looking at a sheriff sale list or, meeting with someone to help to buy a home, whatever. I don't want to have to show a home or try to screen this applicant or it became a drag, and so we interviewed the 3 or 4 that existed, property managers at the time in the city, and it was just like, no. Just the unprofessionalism. There was a contract. We got a sample property management agreement, and it was mailed to us, and you could tell it was on one of those Xerox machines with the old typewriter type on it, and they had written their changes to their contract in the margins in pen.
With like strike throughs on
strike throughs.
clauses.
So
Real professional.
it's like, I just don't think, this is our nest egg. Like, this is our retirement. Like, that we wanted, we knew that we had a lot of value in these properties. And it's like, I didn't trust anybody at that point. That's different today. There's management companies now that are good in Indianapolis. But, so it's just, we knew that there was a need for good property management. We got in it, to me, at the exact perfect time. Because we were able to start it, work with a lot of reluctant landlords, which wasn't always the best clients, but we were primed and ready and had staffing in place for the big boom of mom and pop landlords and institutions and things like that came.
Yeah, which that started happening in, when do you think that happened? 2013, 2014,
Probably.
15, right around there. Because we started around the same time. In 2008, we started Evernest at the bottom of in the crater of this explosion,
That's right.
the great financial crisis, and Matthew had 30 rental houses, and I had around 30 rental houses, and so that's a very, very similar story, which is great. And then you started managing for all these people, and what's really cool is that you've also started like a podcast for Indianapolis investors.
Yeah,
and so you share like what's happening now in the market, all of those things. So if somebody who's listening today is really interested in the Indianapolis market, what are some of the best places today that you would still say, hey, these are great investment areas, if you can find a deal? We know it's harder to find deals today, but if you could find a deal, what are those C-class areas that are like, hey, this is a great up-and-coming area that I would own houses in? If you were buying today, where would you be buying?
So I heard someone talk about this the other day, and I think there's some wisdom behind this. I think Washington Street we have Meridian Street, which is our northwest divide. We have Washington. That's our east-west. It goes east-west. And someone said if you took Washington Street and went out and went up like 2 miles.
Went north 2 miles?
Well, yeah, just went north and south 2 miles, like kind of along that corridor. Some of those areas are not great, but I think they're prime for transition. And so, look, it's hard to find good deals. We've actually went to some different markets. It's like Kokomo and Anderson, which are very blue collar type. They're smaller. They're 50,000, 30,000 respectively, I think, in population, but good rental stock, still can make numbers work from a cash flow standpoint. But I've had agents come to me and say, there is nothing available that has an Indianapolis city address that cash flow positive. Like
Wow.
I've heard, now is that true every day? No. But the point is it's the deals that Scott and I bought don't exist anymore. And we know that. I mean, they haven't since then, but there is opportunity. In Indianapolis is now, I would call moving away from a cash flow market, we're an appreciation market. And we've seen good appreciation over the last few years. Will that continue? Well, time will tell. I think we're getting back to normal, like 4 or 5% appreciation. But if you use leverage, that's a great return if you're looking at it purely from an equity standpoint. And that's how we've had to preach to our clients and our would-be investors that want to come into our system, is that Indianapolis is still a great place to invest. You just have to have a different expectation when you come to Indianapolis. Don't read a Bigger Pockets post from 4 years ago about Indianapolis and think it's the same today, because it's not.
So how are you? That's a great point. So a couple of things. Where do you see investors make the biggest mistakes when they come into your market in Indianapolis? Because I've found out as a property manager in our business, you get to advise a lot of people, right? Mm. Because we always say maybe you date your wholesaler, your flipper, or your turnkey provider, or your agent, but you marry your property manager, right? Because it's a long-term relationship, and we don't want to manage crap that you buy with ridiculous expectations. So how are you coaching new investors when they come in, and what are the mistakes you see people make?
Yeah, we have taken a concerted effort to really talk about the 5 profit centers of real estate and not focus on cash flow, as Jeremy mentioned. I mean, obviously, everyone would love cash flow because it pays the bills and allows that instant gratification of receiving that check in the mail or electronic transfer.
Well, people think, hey, mailbox money.
Right,
I just want to show up to the mailbox and get me a check.
Right. But the stuff that you don't get in hand, it's the equity on paper and the other benefits, tax benefits that you get. That's softer, and you have to just remind people, because they don't speak that language, and you have to build that financial IQ about real estate investing with our clients. And so we've made a concerted effort this year. We redesigned our client relations department, and bolstered that team, and really are trying to train them to think differently and to think like investors themselves, and really try to explain the language, and then show. We invested some new tools, software to show that equity, show that pay down, and then bring that up in conversations and to have that meaningful conversation that, yes, okay, you had a maintenance bill that took your cash flow this month, but you're gaining equity, you're gaining wealth. That's a long-term play. That's been our playbook. It's worked well for the 25 years we've been doing it. And that's the message we teach our clients.
So what are the 5 profit centers? And I know you mentioned a couple of them just then.
Yeah, gosh, put us on a spot. So it's cash flow. Mm-hmm. That's number one. I mean, it's probably the least important in my mind.
But the one that most people pay attention
to. Tax benefits. Mm-hmm. Huge benefit. Scott and I talk about that a lot. It's the shelter you gain, especially when you own a lot of properties from depreciation. It's a wonderful thing. There's loan pay down. So it's, paying down your loan every month. Now, Maybe you have to dip into your own reserves to help pay that loan because your cash flow is short that month. That's going to happen probably. It's appreciation that you get. And those two things kind of work to create equity, like loan pay down and appreciation.
Correct.
And then there's inflation hedging, about kind of locking in at rates. And then you know that, if you take a 30-year mortgage out today, bank can't ever change it, right? so you kind of lock yourself into to that interest rate. Today, you may want to change that out in a few years if it goes lower. I don't personally think it's going to go any much lower, like materially lower. But yeah, if you look at that, to me, it's people are obsessed with cash flow, and I'm sure you guys talk about it on this podcast a lot. But it's like you will never get wealthy with cash flow on the single family game. You never will. But you can get wealthy if you buy enough single family homes. Absolutely. But it'll be because you probably used leverage correctly. You were smart about the investments you made, and you held on to them over a period of time. It's, to me, I feel sick to my stomach when I hear investors say, I thought I was going to like this. I'm a year in, I'm selling. It's like, man, that's, you just got to get through it. And how can we help you get through that? Because being a landlord is a grind. Now, Scott and I have our company that manages our homes, and that provides us a lot of freedom and security. And, not that we totally lose touch with our portfolio, but we trust the people that are managing it to make good decisions on our behalf. And when we look at what's happening, we feel good about what's happening with our portfolio. So you just have to stay in the game. That's the thing. It's a long-term wealth generation activity, and you can't look at it in the micro and say, this year I lost $4,000. I have to sell. Well, what's your property worth today versus what you paid for it or what it was worth last year? That bigger thinking. I think a great exercise for investors is to create a personal financial statement and update it every year. That helps. That'll help because it keeps you focused and keeps you really in tune with how you're performing, how the overall portfolio is performing. Don't look at your statement from your property manager as a measure of failure or success. It really should be on how much equity you've gained and how much wealth you've generated for yourself.
Yeah, I think this is a great point. We just had an interview with a hard money lender in here the other day, and Dan Butler was talking about he was like 28 or whatever, riding in an airplane. He had a W-2 job, and he said, hey, in 20 years, I want to own X amount of properties free and clear. And so he had this long-term mindset, which I think investors lose. Yeah. A lot of investors that come into the markets think, I'm going to make a lot of money real quick. It doesn't happen like that. Then he also worked his full-time job for another 13 years. Like from the time he bought his first property, he still worked a W-2 for 13 years. And it was just like, it's this mindset that I want investors to understand. This is not a get-rich-quick thing. This is a get-rich-slow thing, and it just takes a lot of time and patience. And it is a grind, right?
Yeah,
so
it is.
Either you're going to manage the properties and do it all, and it'll be a grind, or even when you hire property management, guess what? You still have to have the mental fortitude to hang in the game and not lose sight of the end goal. Because if you're patient enough, and I love the way y'all did it. You started flipping also on the side to generate that cash, which that cash is what we always say is oxygen to your business, and it helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what else do maybe investors miss when they come into Indianapolis when you're coaching them, besides like the short term, they focus on cash flow? What else are they missing? Because we see it a lot here. A lot of people think, well, the cheapest house is going to be the best house. And again, that's kind of a cash flow misconception. So what about y'all?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I mean, a lot of times you get what you pay for. So if you want a nice asset, you got to pony up and pay for it. But there's obviously different strategies. There's different class D, C, B, A. We don't go in the lower end. It's not our niche. So
the lower end being like the D class, F, whatever.
Yeah. Right. So obviously we would try to stick with A and B if we could, and we will dip into the C's, quite often. But really nothing lower than that for us. It's just not our specialty. Mm-hmm. But the biggest takeaway that I try to, when I get involved with clients and investors, is you really have to have that business mindset as well. Because it's not personal. You can't agonize over every repair bill And you also have to understand that you got to put money back in your investment and maintain the value of it.
Yeah. You can't just can't let it ride and think
Right.
that it doesn't need maintenance, and turns don't need paint and
Right.
carpet and all of that. And
Right.
also, we think about like keeping that resident long term. If you have a good one, do whatever you can to keep that resident.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, we really take our tenants or our residents, we call it resident relations. We really take that seriously because that's the biggest boost to ROI is that you keep that resident in there. You don't have the turnover. You don't have those repairs. You don't have the vacancy as well, the silent killer of cash flow. So that's what, so we try to build those relationships and really work hard to keep residents in there multiple years. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
We actually moved to where we start with a 2-year lease with every resident. And, we will take a year lease. I mean, we still will do that, but that's not the starting point. That kind of negotiate that if that happens. And we'll do up to 3-year lease max. But
What do you think the biggest misconception investors have about property managers?
well, there's a lot of.
I mean, y'all are both investors.
Yeah.
You were investors
Yeah.
first, and now you have a really big property management company. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are?
I think it's like having a lawyer. It's like you don't really need a good one until something bad happens. And, you don't want a bad lawyer when something bad happens. And so, we do have a tough stigma to overcome. I think a lot of investors think property managers have it easy. They're just collecting the fees and they take it first. But no, obviously we have done property management ourselves. We now have employees that handle the day-to-day for us. But I have the utmost respect for our team because they work hard and they have to deal with a lot.
And not for a lot of money. It's not like you're getting paid buckets of money.
No,
It's not like the NFL or anything like that.
Do you have anything that you like misconceptions?
I think it's a lot of what Scott said. I think it's, what do you guys do? Besides
What are you
collect
doing for
rent?
that 10%?
Yeah, and they do expect a whole lot for 10%. But yeah, I just think it's, you're the reason my investment is failing. I think in some cases property managers earn that. Like they have done and made bad mistakes. If, we take on a lot of properties from clients who've had a bad experience with a property manager. And it's the running joke in property managers, it's best to be the second property manager, right? It's always better to be the second property manager. But, if those people that are telling us the experiences, if they're true experiences, they're telling us like this happened and this happened and this happened, it's like, wow, that's horrible. Now, it's probably not exactly like they're saying it, but we do know property managers make mistakes. We make mistakes.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
We do. We make mistakes. We get it. And, but what you want to be able to do is to stand up and say, we messed this up and here's how we're going to make it right for you. We can't be the reason your return dwindles or there is no return or this investment's been a failure. There's a lot more to a failed investment than the property manager. In most cases, it's the property manager has little or nothing to do with that investment being a bad investment. It could be bad luck, it could be a bad property, it could be a combination of things. But I do think most investors that fail at it, that had a property manager, would probably blame the property manager or cite the property manager as a major reason why the investment failed.
I think that's a really good point because when I look at the investors, and I tend to think whether they're buying it from a wholesaler or a turnkey provider, the person who's selling it usually has, or an agent, investor friendly agent, the person who's selling it usually gives them like these super high expectations of fantastic property. This is what it should rent for. Sometimes we even have to come back and say, no, that's not what it'll rent for. Like it's going to rent for less than that actually. So your whole pro forma on your paper means nothing.
Yeah.
Like your 2% for repairs and maintenance is ridiculous. You might as well throw that in the trash.
Yeah.
And so if investors came in with correct expectations, and I think a lot of it is what makes or breaks the investment a lot of times is just on the buy side.
Yep.
The type
absolutely.
of property you're buying, Are you buying in a D or an F class neighborhood that's going to be hard to keep residents long term? You're going to have difficulty collecting rent every month. Are you buying an old 100-year-old house, which we both have that old house stock in our cities?
Yep, absolutely.
Which are going to have more repairs and maintenance. Like, people get into this idea of, well, Section 8 is going to solve all my problems because it's guaranteed rent, and that's not the case. It's a lot more that goes into it. So I think setting expectations is sometimes one of our hardest jobs as a property manager. And I think probably our sales team, BDMs, we call them business development managers, don't do a great job of that. They should be super realistic. I was able to sell a lot of contracts when I was the BDM simply because I told people the way it was.
Yeah.
I was not sugarcoating anything because I was an investor, and I was like, hey, I've got the same problems you do.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to run into.
That's been our approach as well. I mean, I've done very little of that. Mostly it's been Jeremy's area. But when I talk to potential clients and investors that, come to us, you got to be real. You got to try to be honest. But luckily we have a BDM that has that same mentality. He's a very consultative style to him, and he'll walk people through. And we do provide, our evaluations and performance, and hopefully correct those misconceptions early.
Yeah, I do think people like to be told the truth, or at least, our version of the truth. And I think because I think that becomes a little different narrative than they've heard before. It's like, wait a minute, oh, okay. You would only be telling me that because from our perspective, like, well, we want to tell you all the good things because we want your business. But at the same time, if I come to you and try to be as real with you as I possibly can, people are going to sense that and then go, okay, I think you're telling me the truth. I trust you, and let's go. And I think that's not the secret sauce necessarily, but I do think it matters to people that if you can talk to them about the reps you've had and what you've went through, that it matters to them, and you can build trust that way.
It's 100% a trust builder, especially when you can tell them you don't need to buy that house.
Yeah.
Or, they're coming to you and saying, hey, I've got this property. I'm thinking about buying it. I heard one of your podcasts, or I watched you on YouTube, and would you help me think through this? And I'm like, yeah. I get on the phone with them, and I'm like, you don't need that property. Like, we would love to manage a property, but probably we don't want to manage that one. Like, you will lose money if you buy that.
Right. Yeah. We're very selective. I mean, fortunately, we're in a position where we've advised clients not to buy that. And also once they bought it, we had to turn down a lot of business. I mean, we'd be so much bigger if we took on everything that came to us, for sure.
And I monitor our BDM's emails, and it's frequently that I'll hear him say, I would not advise you to buy that property. We've not had good luck in that area. And the gratitude they show him in a response is very real. And it's like, wow, thanks so much. I appreciate you being honest with me. Dodged a bullet, whatever they want to choose there. But that alone will have them come back to him and ask. And if he says, yeah, this is hey, we manage this area, then okay, bam. I'm buying it. I'm using you. Like that's how you build it. And not just being the yes person all the time.
I was about to say, only an idiot would hear that and then go say, well, I want to hear something else. I'm going to go to a different person. I want the yes.
Yes, that's right.
and I found there are people like that just refuse to believe the truth and get overly optimistic, and they end up in a lot of pain down the road when that investment doesn't pan out the way they thought it would.
Yeah. And from the operational side, that's more my area. Some of our toughest clients and those outcomes that haven't been pleasant to deal with have been from poor purchases. And they want to blame us, but it's like, we didn't make you buy that property. You bought it before you came to us, and we tried to help, but there's no saving this, unfortunately. Yeah. And we've had to advise clients, and really, I think it's a great service we do, is we say, look, you should get out of this one, put what you can get out of it into something that's better. And that really, I guess if we can save relationships, we try to do that. In some cases, they're just convinced we're the problem, and they move on. But that's how life is.
And time will tell, like, whether that was true or not.
Right.
Because we too. I mean, at Evernest, we make mistakes. I mean, we're not shy about that. But for us, it's all. It kind of everything is about integrity. We're going to be very, very straightforward. Mm-hmm. We're going to tell you the truth, whether whether it's our fault or hey, it's just a poor investment on your part. But Yeah, I think that's really good. Now, you guys also sell real estate to investors, so you have agents on staff, correct?
That's right. We have a brokerage.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good group. We list it's at a certain point, investment life cycles come to an end, and people decide to sell for whatever reason, and we're there to help them sell. But we have two, and we're trying to get a third buyer's agent on board to help investors buy. I think there's opportunities out there. Inventory levels are in Indianapolis right now are, I think pretty consistent with the rest of the country. We're about 20% ahead of where we were this time last year in terms of inventory levels. I was looking just before we came on this trip, and there's more than 5,000 homes available in our local MLS system in Central Indiana right now. So it's a good market to be in still. There's a lot of good things about Indianapolis to get excited about. So we're trying to help people buy, and we've been successful, and hopefully continue to help more and more investors buy properties.
So if any of our listeners or anybody watching our YouTube channel, if they wanted to find you all, where would they go? What's the best place to go? I know you have a podcast. Yep. What's the name of your podcast?
It's the Indy Real Estate Investing Podcast.
Sweet. Love it.
Indy REI. And we do that every other week. It's something I have really enjoyed doing. Met a lot of neat people, and it's been a great way to keep my fingers, really on the pulse of what's going on in our community in different perspectives on how things are happening. But our website's just threaltyinc.com. And we have a ton of content out there. We're similar to you and how you've built up a lot of content on your website. We, to educate and advise is one of our core values. And so we're always creating content, every week out there on our website. And, a lot of people don't use us, but take advantage of our resources out there, which is perfectly fine. It's flattering that people look at us as a trusted voice in Indianapolis, because we've got a lot of battle scars, Scott and I do, over the years.
25 years of investing is pretty rare out there, actually.
Yeah, so content and education has always been one of our pillars and things we really believe in, and so we encourage you to check that out. So
awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for coming on the podcast. We appreciate it. And if you want to check out Indy Real Estate, make sure you give the podcast a listen. Go check out and visit their website. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Scott, for being on the show. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor.